Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. DJ at ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man, and I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And we are not irritated.
This is true.
We are not irritating.
This is true.
Maybe we are irritating.
To some people, I'm sure.
I think I'm irritating.
Huh?
I've been told. No, actually, I've been told that you have a soothing voice, and that my voice is a little irritating.
Really?
Yeah.
Who said that?
I don't know, nameless people. But tonight we are going to be talking a little bit about irritation in one regard. Well, maybe the best way to put this is that, you know, a lot of people go through their lives in sort of an endless sort of mood of irritation, often because, you know, one thing or another goes wrong, or things seem to come, you know, you're here, there you are, just trying to do whatever it is you want to do, and everything seems to be fighting you. It seems to be getting in your way. You knock a cup off the counter, and your coffee spills all over and gets all over your shoes, and or you know, you're trying to get something done at work, and somebody else comes in and piles another thing on top of you, another thing on top of you. So you get stuck in traffic when you're trying to get somewhere, etc. Life seems to be an endless sort of series of like petty frustrations or irritations. And oftentimes, if you have someone who's a little triggery or touchy, it can set them off, you know.
Yes.
And you'll have people kind of have what you can sometimes see in this behavior is when one tiny thing, what seems to be a very tiny thing, or, you know, it's always easy to look at someone else and say, oh, that doesn't really matter. But for that person at that moment, that little tiny thing is the literal last straw,
right,
you know, that breaks the camel's back.
Right.
And they'll just start, you know, ranting and raving and chewing holes in the rug because they've just gone off the rails. They've gone over the top.
That's it.
That's it. It's toot. You know, it's phenomenal time. They're just off the rails. And what people usually think about is that, well, if I had, you know, if I could tell my boss off, I had so much money, just tell him to go take a leap. Or if I had, you know, someone who would take care of all these petty irritations for me, if I had money, or if I was powerful, if I had control, if I was famous, I wouldn't have any of these frustrations. And that's an interesting sort of fantasy, because if you look even in your daily life and see people who are quote unquote powerful and have control and famous, they seem to have all these same types of frustrations, maybe even more. And if you kind of set back a little bit, you say, well, this is part of the human condition. This sort of, you know, the universe is, as we've said before, it's a chaotic and random place with pockets of order. And what appears to you to be a sort of a nefarious plot to frustrate your every moment of your every day is really just the somewhat randomness of the universe. And but it's hard to look at it that way. It's hard to look at it that way. It is from the ego's point of view. Certainly from the ego's point of view, it's always somebody else's fault. And why are they doing this to me? And don't they know I'm so busy and I'm already overworked and I'm underpaid? And, you know, it just spins off into all the I's and how unjust everyone else is, and how selfish and self-centered and out to get me everyone else is.
You mean it's not about me?
Well, right, but it is about me. The ego, everything is about, it's about me. And what we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit about that, and sort of the way to combat it. And our inspiration tonight is Tolle. And, you know, obviously, if you followed at all what we do here, or seen any of Tolle's independently, he often talks about The fact that the moment of now, that the isness, and it's an interesting word, the isness of now, and you could also say it in kind of a way that you probably heard before. Many of us have heard before. It is what it is, and it sounds sort of like a palindrome or something that's sort of an obvious statement. It is what it is, yeah. But contained within that is, in essence, the acceptance that this current moment of reality contains this frustration. And largely, fighting it is a waste of time. You've got to accept that this is the current challenge. You wanted to do this, wanted to do that, but then you dropped the bread and it fell butter side down, because the universe is a butter side down kind of place.
Mm-hmm. Entropy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to, it is what it is. The glass is broken, the bread is upside down on the rug, and you just got to, in essence, accept that.
Well, it's interesting to see, because usually you have to be in this mindset of, okay, I know how everything is supposed to happen. You really have to have that framework set up in your mind, so that whenever things go off the expectations, and they always do, you are entitled to a reaction. And that's what I find fascinating. You have to set this up first, so that you can be justified in feeling frustrated.
And angry.
Or whatever the habitual feel happens to be.
And I have a question for you. What are we setting up?
You're setting up your perception of how this moment is supposed to be. I know how this is going to go. It's going to go this way.
That, and I think we're also setting up how important we are to the current moment.
Well, it's all about me anyway. So
Exactly.
why are you even asking that question?
Right. So like when you're at the airport and your flight gets canceled, there's this instant visceral, how can they do that to me? Never mind, it's whatever it is. It's the circumstance. It's you and hundreds and thousands of other people.
Thousands of people.
It feels like a personal, direct, intentional attack.
Right. Well, it feels like it's focused specifically to make you uncomfortable.
Right.
And you wonder, when you sit there and you're going, so what I did was I projected that it's got to go this way. And if it goes this way, then I'm happy?
Almost like it's not even happy. It's correct. It's like that's the way it's supposed to go.
Well, I think it's a touchback to feeling safe, or feeling I got this. It's much more than just it should be a certain way because I'm going to be happy if it's that way. It's more along the lines of, okay, I feel comfortable here. Okay, I'm
in control.
I'm in my comfort zone. Okay, so this is, and as long as all these things happen, I'm in my comfort zone. But if it doesn't happen that way, I'm discomforted.
And I think a comfort zone is right there, but it's also the I am predicting the future, and the future, the world is revolving around my prediction. I say, well, it's supposed to be this way. We're going to be there at 8:47. We're going to open the doors. Dinner will be ready. Blah blah blah. All these things happen. Instead, you get there at 9:52, and the party's half over, and your favorite drinks are gone, and this loud guy in the corner is carrying on, and the music isn't what you like, and then all of a sudden, all this is a personal attack on your vision of reality. Your vision of reality is somehow not coming true, and that is uncomfortable.
Yes, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It really is, because it's like, who said you knew what was going on in the first place?
Right. Isn't it if you think about it for a couple of seconds like that, you say, isn't this a perfect conceit that somehow my my vision should be the only acceptable vision?
This is how I learned it. This has been my experience.
Well, and also this total sense of self-importance.
For everybody else, you mean?
For everyone else, that the world not only revolves around me, but that my idea of who everyone is around me and how everything is supposed to go, and as you said, what makes me comfortable, should never be abrogated or violated. It's a sense of entitlement.
No, that's true.
A sense of entitlement and a sense of it's a sort of a assumption of arrogance, assumption of importance, and the ego hates the truth. If the truth shines in and these circumstances don't occur, and you're caught up with all the other hundreds of people in having your flight canceled, all of a sudden, oh gosh, maybe I'm not so important, and then your ego roars up. So of course you're important. These people have got to realize that they're all in your way, that they've got to get out off the road because you've got to get somewhere, and they need to get you a seat on that next flight or on the flight right now because I'm important and I've got things to do and people are counting on me, and all that rises up this tremendous sense of entitlement. And it roars out of people's mouths, and you see them getting purple-faced and demanding to see the manager and, all that.
Yes. Well, it brings to mind when we were in Memorial Sloan Kettering, and we had to do consultations with groups of doctors. Now, if you want to see, there are certain expectations set up by every single doctor in that room, mind you, because that's the way they've been trained. They all know how this is supposed to go. It's a teaching hospital, but to get in, you had to jump through the ropes and get your PhD and whatever, and now you're specializing in pediatric cancer. So there they are. And they are following the one doctor who is treating patients. Okay, and they're listening to what this doctor is saying. So, but inevitably, what you see them do, because they do change this up, like once a month, there's always a new crop of doctors coming in, trying to understand what's going on. And they all have, okay, well, I'm special. I'm going to approach my patients this way, or I'm going to handle it this way. And there is absolutely no room for someone who's not understanding what's going on. Okay? Some of the parents, I would see it, doctors are talking to them, and they're looking at them like, I don't understand what you're saying to me. Some of them would just get this arrogant look on their face. Oh, you're not smart enough to understand what we're saying. I'm sitting there going, you're not smart enough to communicate the concept to this person. And this person has got to make the decision on where to go and what procedures to take for their child. And you are not doing an adequate explanation.
Right.
So, I had seen this. Sometimes they would get this look of, oh, well, and the parents are trying to comprehend, and they sort of have a grasp on it, and they would ask questions, and it's that look of, well, gee, you don't know what you're talking about.
It's the attitude, right? You're getting an attitude.
Right. And the parents, we would all talk to each other because we're dealing with egos.
Oh, yes.
Egos all the way around. And your major concern is your own charge, your own child. And the child is quite capable of reading these people, by the way. And if he thinks that they're just blathering on, our Chris would just turn the TV up to the point where it was deafening and nobody could hear anybody talk. It was amazing. But going back to that, it's learning that you have to deal with egos no matter what's going on, especially in a situation like that, because the doctors have to have an ego in order to compete in that environment. And it's just set up that way. The nurses that were much more compassionate, but they had to play by the rules of the hospital. So you got all sorts of interesting little byplays going on. But regardless, when you realize that, okay, if I'm accepting what's happening now, I essentially become egoless, because my complete concern is what is the best next step for this person. And at that point, you sort of open up to God, to inspirations like, help me, Lord, because I'm dealing with this and this and this. Which way do we go? Because they're relying on me to make the decision. And nobody else, mind you. Even though you have all these egos, they're not making that decision for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, and I think in the context of what we're talking about here, the irritation that, let's say, a doctor might have with a parent is because of their inability to communicate, but they see it reflected as the person I'm talking to is dumb or they can't understand.
Right.
So that's a perfect microcosm of this same sort of thing, in essence, played out in front of you. But we're all guilty of, in essence, what Tolle talks about as being sub-aware or unconscious, and allowing the ego to pilot you through the chaos of the universe with this iron-bound sense of importance and this amazing arrogance that everyone else should understand. Of course, I'm talking to you. You should perfectly understand what I'm saying, and the fact that you don't is your fault. I'm trying to get to a particular important thing, so the fact that there's traffic in my way is, unacceptable. That's someone else's fault. They have to move all those cars out of my way because I'm an important doctor. The thing that we've been, that we're kind of looking at, though, is how do you address that? And you always want to start with, you want to say, I'm guilty of these things. I'm just as guilty as the next person of being frustrated by small things, by traffic, by feeling irritated and allowing the ego to assume this unconscious attitude of sort of superiority or of entitlement. The doctors had a tremendous amount of feeling of superiority because they, as you said, they've been trained for years. You're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're the smartest thing under God's green earth, and that these people should be just worshiping your feet because of how smart you are, and you're deigning to talk to them. They should just be falling over themselves trying, to hang on your every word. Isn't that a lovely fantasy?
Yeah.
But maybe we should do a little bit of Tolle's quote, because the counter to that is not power. It's not getting more degrees. It's not getting more control or more money or more fame, because all those things just feed the ego monster. They actually give it a greater and greater and greater sense of entitlement. The solution to that, to this sort of endless frustration, and the ego will never be satisfied, as you said earlier, Margaret. There's never a point where the ego says, "Oh yes, everything's perfect." There's always some something. And the more entitled it feels, the more it feels justified in just tearing into somebody or demanding that you fix my problem right now before everyone else's because I'm so important.
Right.
The solution is awareness. And do you have Tolle's quote in front of you?
Sure.
All right, well, you do Tolle's quote because he says it beautifully.
All right. With awareness, there comes choice. And so you are able to say, I allow this moment to be as it is. And then suddenly, where before there was irritation, there is now a sense of aliveness and peace. And out of that comes right action. Eckhart Tolle.
And it's interesting that he uses the term right action because I think that's right out of Buddhism, but we won't go there just yet. The key here is awareness. But what are you aware of? You're aware of your existence, your consciousness. But even before you get perhaps to that level, you can just be aware that you're not a super special, top secret snowflake that everyone has to defer to. That the phrase that he says in the middle there, that I allow this moment to be as it is, a way of accepting it, starting to accept it, can just say, it is what it is. Even though there is a tremendous need for me to do X, Y, or Z, I can't right now. And I have to accept that I don't have that I'm not more special or more important. That my frustrations are no more unique than yours. And that's the beginning of an awareness that you are a consciousness and you are a wonderful, unique, vast being. But the universe is still the universe, and you are within it, but not of it. You are a piece of consciousness, embodied. But there will always be the randomness, the frustration, or others less conscious than you, certainly less conscious than you, who will attempt to hijack your attention, your awareness, your moment, put blockades in front of you. And you have to, at that moment, say, it is what it is, retreat into awareness, and realize the power of one thing, which is what Tolle says here, choice. And we learned that in slow Kettering, the idea that you could choose, even in the worst of circumstances.
Well, being grounded in awareness is the first step. And that truly requires a letting go of expectations, as well as recriminations. You can't keep referring to your past and berating yourself for mistakes, and you can't keep projecting in the future that, this could happen and this could happen. It's like, you are here in this moment. Take stock of it. And taking stock means that you really have to look at it in an objective viewpoint. This is what's going on. Now, granted, whenever it has anything to do with anyone you love or you're concerned with, very difficult to do if you're talking about something that is so life and death. Okay, I don't want to go into this extreme, but it's to understand that it all is not in your control, and you will navigate the best you can. And what we had always said was, we live this moment now with no regrets. We will not make a decision that we are going to later on say, well, what if we did it this way?
Yeah, the what ifs are, that's a beautiful ego representation, the what ifs, or the if onlys, the regrets, if you will.
Well, it's expectation. What ifs is expectation. Setting that groundwork of, well, what if we do it this way? It should happen that way.
Yeah.
Unfold in this direction, and it's like, no. We were in a ground that was unwalked.
Exactly.
There was no,
It was exactly that. This was a situation where even the, people say, well, the doctors must know. No, the doctors didn't know. We were past all protocols. People kind of hang their hats. The doctors certainly hang their hats on what they call their protocols. Oh, it's this disease with this condition, with these XYZ markers. We use protocol X or protocol N. And if it turns this way, we have to switch to protocol B. Okay, they have a map, they have a plan, and they know how it's going to go because they go by their pre-trodden ground. You just mentioned it. And in this case, they almost gave us no treatment options at all. And the only one that they could leap to was what most other types of disease would be the final stage. The final stage would be this particular procedure. We won't go into it, but the point being is that we very rapidly learned that there was no gaming this out. There was no scenarios. There was no that expectations that I think we said this once long ago. I'll say it again now. That we were stepping out into a void with no idea whether our feet were going to hit empty space or the next plank in the road. And so you have to throw away, you have to abandon the idea of certainty. You have to abandon the conceit, the fantasy that you can plan it out and that you'll know that if you put your foot here, what if we do this, it'll be that. That's wonderful, but it's all ego conceit. And when you're taken so abruptly into that situation, it's not just disconcerting, it's disorienting, it's a maelstrom. You are immediately confronted with that the situation is unpredictable, but more than just that, it's the true reality of now. You cannot rely on any prior experience because
Right.
there isn't any.
Right. There really was no data to be able to form any kind of protocol.
Right.
It was trailblazer. That's
Yes.
the word I was looking
Exactly, a trailblazer.
for. Trailblazer, where you're meandering down this path trying to find a way through. And sometimes you have to double back and come to another point to try to find your way either over the mountain or across the river kind of thing. And there was nothing for us.
Right.
There really was nothing.
No map.
Nothing.
So you have two choices. You can crumble into dust,
Right.
and that's unfortunately that happens. Or you can say, I accept in this moment of now that I will not know what the next moment will bring, but I know that I have the choice to accept the moment and the choice to go on to the next moment, and I have the ability to do whatever it is that needs to be done in this moment. Maybe a decision needs to be made. We try or don't we try? Or a decision needs to be made. Do I take this for lunch or that for lunch? Whatever it is, the moment of now requires one thing: presence, acceptance, and choice. And one of the things you choose is to not be frustrated, to not be irritated, to understand that the peace of awareness and the idea that you can choose how you will feel, not be, but how you will feel. I am not unhappy. I may feel unhappy in this moment, or I can accept that the moment of now is what it is and that the next moment will be different. You get all the predictors all the certainties, the false certainties, are stripped away. And what you're left with is you and the situation and the choice.
Right.
I guess we have to choose one thing. Let's choose in this moment of now to go back to the studio and listen to a few commercials, and then we'll come back on the other side and talk more about frustration.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him.
She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
So irritating. Thank you, Scott. And we're back. Ta-da. And we're not irritated at all. Before we went to the break, we were kind of talking a little bit about how, let me back up a little bit. We had a terrible situation, but, and many people, in the course of life, in the chaos of what is this universe, can run into a situation similar or maybe much worse or whatever, where the predictability, the ego's fantasy of predictability, of power, of the fact that it's the center of the universe is stripped away. And that can cause, tremendous upheaval in someone's life. And it can cause them to, in essence, almost crack under the pressure. And that does happen. But if you don't, and if you manage to somehow hang on to your sense of awareness and consciousness, you'll find that that's what's left. When all else is stripped away, and Tully had the experience also when he was, before he was awakened or enlightened, he was in a terrible situation. He was always down on himself. He had a very rough childhood. And then one, I believe, evening or one period of time, it just kind of all collapsed in on him, and he realized that he just had to accept it. And he got this tremendous sense of peace and this sense of just conscious awareness. He didn't have any words for it at that time. He wrote it down in his diary. He says, I feel a tremendous sense of peace. I have no idea where it comes from. I hope it doesn't leave me. I'm writing this down, so if it leaves me, I'll know that it happened once.
Right. Right.
We had a very different circumstance, but a similar experience in one regard. Because in the beginning, I'll speak for myself, I was totally floored by the experience of having this happen. It was so beyond, and we've written about this in Christopher's book, that it felt dreamlike, nightmarish. That somehow we were going to wake up, or I was going to wake up from this. That it couldn't be this. That my life, our lives, weren't supposed to go this way. It was all predictable, and we had it planned out, and we had our savings, and we had this. We were going to do these things and do that. All that was stripped away, and you were put into this situation where you had the opportunity to fall into a basket.
Right.
But we didn't do that. And then I don't want to dwell there, because the point was that when all of it was stripped away, all we had was the awareness and the honoring, the urgency, the focus was not on the ego. It was to become egoless and understand that we had to be in the moment of now for Christopher, who was in the moment of now, was actually in the moment of now of having to fight this particular circumstance.
Yeah.
It was a disease, but it was a circumstance. It was the randomness of this existence, this temporal existence, which throws these things this wonderful, terrible, horrible experience into his lap and into our laps, but really into his lap. But our awarenesses were stripped away by the tremendous upheaval and concern that we had for him.
Well, what I'd like to say is that any parent in a situation where your child's life is in danger, you would gladly, in a heartbeat, give your life over. It's a given. It's just something in you. You just everything to help this child survive. But you don't have that option.
Right.
So the question rises, what can I do in this situation? And you want a feeling of helplessness.
Yes.
That it is there in spades. So that's the breaking point for a lot of people.
Right.
I can't do anything, yet I am required to be here and witness everything that's going on for my child, with my child. And at that point, you have a choice. Do you continue feeling helpless and indulging in the fact that there's nothing I can do, oh, woe is me.
Right. Feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah, and then you fall into a basket. Or can you take a step past your ego, your feelings of woe is me, and this is horrible. Yes, it's horrible. Yes, this is the worst fear a parent could possibly have. Yes, yes, yes. It's all there, and so are you. So your choice is there. And I believe I've said this before. My ego and my mind had nothing. There was nothing I could come up with that would cure this child, that would make it so completely better that he wouldn't have to struggle. And if you don't accept that, you will basically form this, what I would call an internal, almost like a tornado, internal spin, which tears apart your heart continually. And I stood there and I was like, well, what good is that? Yeah. Seriously, what good is it to sit there and feel like, oh, this is horrible?
So self-indulgent.
Well, it's coming to the point realizing that it is self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Because I remember speaking with one of the dads, and we were both discussing the fact that, one of the other fathers had just a terrible time, and he kind of ran away from the situation, to break away. And then, he had to come back, but it was almost too late. Maybe that's the best way to put it. He was at a point where he realized that the child was leaving, and he almost couldn't take it. So he was like running away. But at the same time, you really not want to be there when the child just needs you to sit by his bedside? So the other parent and I were discussing this, and I remember him looking at me going, well, you can't blame him. I'm the wrong person to say that to.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
That was a mistake. I looked at him and like, what do you mean you can't blame him?
Yeah.
Why is it about him? His child is the one that's dying.
Exactly.
And he, of course, the other father looked at me like, okay. Yeah, because it's again, yes, you feel that way. But guess what? It's not about you.
Not about you.
It was never about you. Yeah. And that simple fact has got to penetrate through the giant ego that says it should be this way. because of who I am. Like, who really cares who you are? Seriously, in that moment, where does the importance lay? And I say this because I've seen the look in the child's face. Many children looking at their parent, realizing that they're crumbling. This parent is crumbling right in front of their eyes. And who begins to step up at that moment? The child. So, the roles have reversed. Is that really what you want? As part of your testimony to the Father in heaven, that I crumbled and I couldn't help my child, and he's the one who helped me? Is that really what you want to be able to say to yourself? So, that's when you choose a life of no regret, even if it tears your heart to shreds. Say, no, I'm going to complete this with him. He is the most important thing. Lord, where do we go from here?
Exactly, but these situations are unfortunately beyond most people's experience. However, the same thing, the same revelation has to occur. And I won't say it's easier, it's much, much harder, but if you have it all stripped away from you in an instant, and you step into that, you accept that. When you just said about the father, you can't blame him. That wasn't accepting it, that was running away from it. That was rejecting it, was running into ego. If you accept that, you really never knew what was going to happen. You just thought you did.
Right. Right.
It's the first step is a step into kind of admitting that you were always in a fantasy. The fantasy was the one you were living in, not the one you're in. This isn't the nightmare fantasy.
Right.
You were in the fantasy.
Right.
That you knew what was going to happen. It's much scarier to live in the I don't know what's going to happen next. And then to say even more scary, I accept that. I accept that the moment of now is what it is, and it has no real hold. My ego has no real control over the next moment of now. It has control over one. You do have control. Let's be very, very, very clear. You have the ultimate power, but you have to realize it first. The ultimate power is choice. Two choices, really, that are the same choice, but there's two sides to the choice. The first choice is in awareness. You choose to accept the moment of now. And that sounds like, well, you're not going to do anything? Is the ego carping in the background? No, of course I'm going to do whatever I can. I may fight harder than you've ever seen anyone fight in their life. However, to fight that hard without the maelstroms that Margaret was talking about, without these heart-tearing little tornadoes, you first have to accept that in this moment of now, it is what it is. It is the isness of now. There isn't another moment you get to pick. There isn't like I don't like this moment of now. Let me put my hand back in the barrel and draw out another moment of now. No, that would be nice. You never know what you get. But this moment of now is what you've got. It's the only moment you've got. It's the only moment that any of us have. And in this moment of now, the isness of now must be accepted. And you can't just say, it will happen regardless, but acceptance is where you get your power. You accept it, and the peace, and this happened to us, the peace descends upon you because you just say, it is what it is. And therefore, I don't need the ego telling me I should plan for the what if 10,000 things, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. None of it. And when you look back at people with the acceptance in your eyes, it scares the hell out of them.
Oh my, yes.
You look at somebody and say, and they're like, you should do this, you should do this, and you say, well, no. In this moment of now, this is what we're going to do. They say, how can you do that? Because this is the moment of now. You don't say it that way. You just say, this is what we're doing. And it scares the hell out of them because they're like, these people are truly in the moment of their abject suffering, and they're accepting it. You accept that moment of now, and it doesn't have to be suffering, but you learn to accept the moment of now, and then you get to choose what you'll do, how you'll feel, how your consciousness will feel about it. And you can accept the moment of now, the worst possible thing that everyone tells you is the most horrible thing that ever happened to anybody in the history of all things, and say, I'm going to be fine with it. There'll be a next moment, or it may be the last moment, but it's still fine.
Well, I'd like to point out that what is life itself, you become very aware of life and the aliveness of the moment.
Yes.
The flows that are around you and the thoughts, as well as an internal peace that you really cannot describe. The peace is how do I say this? An accepting what is in that moment, acknowledging that this is where you are at, and I had always said this is where you start, and I want you to understand that in every moment you must start. It's a repetition of start, start, start. So in this moment, this is where we are, and we start here. When you let go of all the preconceived notions and you're taking stock of the moment, the sense of aliveness is so profound that you appreciate the fact that you are present together with someone that you care about deeply. And sometimes you acknowledge the fact you're present together with a giant ego. But that's what it is.
Exactly. This is a very good point. We were present in our situation with a lot of giant egos. And they were wonderful, wonderful, caring people, but they had tremendous egos because that's just who they were.
So they
were very unconscious. But in the acceptance of the moment, and we didn't have these terms at that time. It's interesting because Totally didn't have the terms either. We didn't have these terms at that time. We've come to this later through many years. But at that time, those egos were just there in the moment of now to be dealt with, but not in frustration and anger. Just to say, well, I know that in this moment, when this person says this, it's meant to almost frighten or to control, or it's just that's what they want me to do. They want me to treat their word as though it is not just a suggestion, it is the gospel, it is what's going to happen. And when we would hear it, I said, we hear you, but we're going to do this. And they said, well, that's not going to, it's going to do this. I understand all that. Yes, I understand. But we're going to do this. It was still our decision. And that was the interesting thing about it, is they were trying to give us not just advice, but almost this sort of seductive, I'll take the decision away from you. I'll just tell you what to write down, and you write it down and sign it.
Right.
And then it's your decision, but I told you what to do. And we would say, okay, you told us all that, and that's great. We understand it. Do you understand it? Yes, we understand it. Are you sure you understand it? Yes, we're very sure we understand it. So what are you going to do? We're going to do this. Oh, wait, you can't do that. I say, well, it's our decision, right? Yes, that's what we're going to do. And, you would get the giant egos, like they're just sort of taken aback.
How could you choose?
How could you choose? But they knew that they had, the interesting thing about it was they knew it was not just, it was a decision. Because it was made in awareness, it has tremendous power. It actually has coalesced the moment of now into the next moment of now. And it's the ultimate control, but it's not control. It's the ultimate control of you, the awareness that is you, and saying, the greater I, not little I, but the greater I, the awareness, accepts the moment of now and then says, this is what If you give me a choice of what is to be the next thing to do, not the next moment of now, but the next thing to do, we'll do this. And the universe has to accept your choice, interestingly enough. And then the universe does what it does next. It's a byplay in one regard. You're coalescing the universe with your observation and then your choice.
And it was a constant thing because you are in an environment where the foundation of it is still the same. You're trying to do your very best to help this child, and you realize that this is his life and not yours. Temptation is always to go back to satisfy yourself.
Oh, and that's, it's a great point. The temptation is always there.
Always.
The ego doesn't give up. I mean, it does get less and less and less and less, but it doesn't give up because it's a temptation to fall back and say, oh, someone else has figured this all out. Let's go with that. Let's let the ego guide us. I'm tired of being in the moment of now. But you in awareness, you say, yes, that's the siren song. That's seductive, but we're not going to do that.
Right. And you must choose again. And I believe we've reached the end of our hour.
We have to choose it. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.